Alvarez. We're here today for our initial permanency hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming. Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Tori Cook is my permanency specialist. We're present ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Jacob, here and ready.
Okay, and neither Mrs. Alvarez or Mr. Alvarez are present. They're not in the waiting room, and neither of them has applied for court-appointed counsel. And they've not attended a hearing since the original setting of our adversary hearing.
And Judge, just for the court, I know the report was stating at the time we didn't have a date for paternity testing. That is actually set to happen tomorrow.
Okay, that was my question. My first question was, has that happened? And have I didn't see any results of that. So
yes, ma'am. Dad's is set for 8:30 in the morning and the child at 1:30 tomorrow.
all right. Okay, so Ms. Cook, if you'll give us an update and if you've had any contact with them.
Yes, so I still cannot find mom. I've done an accurate search. I've been to addresses listed there, called the numbers provided, and none of them belong to her. So she's still MIA at this point. Hector, I have been in contact with. He's hard to get in contact with in person, but he does text me back, and he did confirm that he will be going tomorrow morning for his paternity testing. So, and then for Jacob, Jacob is doing amazing. He's getting nice and chunky. Doctors have no concerns about his health. He's doing very well in the home, and him and Mia, his sister, have bonded pretty well.
Will you be texting him first thing in the morning, just as a reminder?
Yeah, I was going to text him this afternoon and in the morning. So,
okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Does he have transportation to get where he needs to go? And
yes.
okay. All right. And I'm trying to remember, is placement a relative placement?
No, it's in a foster home.
Okay. But his sister is there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, anything else to add?
I don't have anything.
We've made no progress on services, is that correct?
That is correct.
And Mr. Alvarez, has he ever given any indication that if he is the father that he would work services?
Yeah, he said he would, but he believes he's not the father, so.
Okay. All right, Ms. Zavala.
Your Honor, Jacob's in a wonderful placement. He's thriving. He's with a sister. I have no concerns at all about him there, and think it's in his best interest that that placement continue.
Okay. All right, well, due to the lack of progress that we've made, and I understand he's going to genetic test hopefully tomorrow, but I'm going to go ahead and set it for an early final. So July 30th of 2024 will be our final. You know, if we get genetic results back and he hits the ground running, then we can always push it out. But parents are not in compliance with service plans. So today I'll find that there is an ongoing danger to return the child home, and that the department is using reasonable efforts to reunify the family. I'll continue the department as temporary managing conservator, and I'll continue the child's current placement and see everybody July 30th for our final. Mr. Trout, did you have a question?
It's all right. It was something written in the report as far as some medical issues, but I saw where it stated, I think the child is set for surgery in May. If I was looking at the right one, I might have been looking at the different report when I saw that. Yep. Sorry. Looking at a different report. You read it wrong.
Okay.
That's our next case.
All right. Then I'll see everybody back in July.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
You scared me. I was like, how did I not know that?
Well, no, I had both of them sitting here and I just opened up the wrong one and was just flipping through it and I saw that and I'm like, oh, wrong one.
That makes sense.
I sent my client the login information, Your Honor. I'm not sure if he'll be here or not.
I just spoke with him, Miss Lucero, and he said he wasn't aware it was today. He thought it was the 4th because your email had said the 4th, he said. And
No, I don't think
so
so.
he's currently in a visit with his daughter.
Okay, I'll look at my email, but I don't think I did that. But who knows? Okay,
And
I'll
then
double check.
I will say, Judge Baker, I have not been able to get a hold of the mom at all.
Okay.
I think she's
Well, I mean, if there was an error on the date, it's not that big a deal, and I'll just mark that he was in a visitation, with the child. So,
Thank you.
it's not something I'm going to hold against him. So we are here on a review hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Nicole Brooks is my permanency specialist. We're present ready.
T.D. Hammonds for Misty Smith Denton, mother of Isabella. I'm ready, Judge.
Maureen Lucero on behalf of the father, Christopher Reaper, Honor. I'm ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Isabella.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then let's get an update from Ms. Brooks.
So since I filed my court report, Isabella had an appointment last week and she is now having OT, PT, and feeding therapy once a week. It was less than that. She was having the feeding therapy every week, but her PT and OT was not every week, and now it's gone to that. All her medical stuff I really put in there, and she has a lot to keep up with. She has an upcoming surgery in May dealing with her throat. They did find silent reflux. And then when she went to the ears, nose, and throat doctor, they found like a diamond-shaped hole at the top of her throat. And they're wanting to do a further test on that. And if it comes back the same, then they are going to go ahead and do a surgery where they'll inject like a potato starch to close that hole, to hopefully help with the feeding that way. She did just send off swabs to genetics to see if there's anything genetically going on there. She has had an appointment with her GI specialist, and right now they're not finding any need to put a GI tube in her at the time. But they are still on hold in case something more severe pops up that she will need that. She's doing really good. She's a happy baby. She's smiling, laughing, crawling. As far as parents, I did get their drug screening results back from last month that I did not put on my court report because I didn't have them back yet. Dad was positive for marijuana on both his UA and hair follicle. The levels for his UA were 264 and his hair follicle was 7.8. Mom did do her hair follicle. We got a hold of Care Express and they overlooked the hair follicle I had set her for on the 7th when I sent her for her UA. And it came back with her levels for methamphetamines at 25,000 and her amphetamines at 9,000.
Hair?
Her hair, that was the hair follicle, yes, ma'am. Dad is now back in Amarillo as of last week. We are getting him set up with his services. I did find it hard to really get a hold of him up there. And anytime I called to ask about services, he kept telling me I'm working on it, or we were trying to get the online set up per Miss Lucero's request at the last hearing, and they were needing finalization from him, and we were trying to get payment set up. And then he threw in the fact he was moving back. And so I have got a hold of Jennings. He's supposed to call them and set his appointments up. I've already sent payment off for those. BIP, we sent the referral and stuff off, so they'll be in contact with him, and same with his OSAR assessment. He did say he started NA on Monday. And I sent him a sheet for verification on that to have signed and saying he's going and what step he's on. And then his parenting, I'm trying to get a hold of Colorado where he was doing his online, because from what he says, he had completed 20. So I'm trying to verify that to see if we can get some kind of verification he has completed his parenting. Mom's completed everything, but she has relapsed. She relapsed the end of February. So I have sent an OSAR referral back out for that, and we'll follow recommendations from that. We have canceled her visits per the methamphetamine usage. And other than that, that's all the update I have.
Have you had any recent contact with her then?
No, I've tried calling her. Her sister has texted me and said she's been sleeping a lot lately, and so I don't know if it's her coming off the high every time she's using. But I have not had any contact with her.
When was your last contact with her?
It would have been March 25th. No, it would have been the week before that. So that Monday before, I don't know exactly what day that was, Judge Baker. March 18th. And that was the day I sent her for her hair follicle. So that was the last day I had contact with her. And she had admitted to me that morning she used, and she had used all weekend.
Okay. Have we had any discussions with her about going to inpatient?
Yes, and we told, and she wants to go if that's what her OSAR recommends. I told her it'd be a good idea because she did go to inpatient at the beginning of the case, and she did have negative drug screens up until this point. I do know she has a prescription for the amphetamine usage for Adderall, but she did tell me she was snorting the pills. And so I think she's abusing that prescription.
She was positive for the amphetamines, not methamphetamine.
She was positive for methamphetamines as well.
Oh, as well. All right. Okay. All right, Mr. Hemmons.
Judge, this of course was the first time I learned of the relapse, so that's very disappointing. I have 2 phone numbers for Misty. I'll try to call those as soon as we finish this hearing and describe to her what's going to be required for her to get back on even the same field as reunification. I mean, I don't know, without talking to her, I don't know what's happened. But I'll tell her she's made an incredibly bad choice.
All right. Well, sure would like to see her get back into inpatient treatment, obviously.
Yeah, I'll just tell her that in all likelihood it's going to be her best opportunity to at least show some responsibility. Like I said, this is very surprising to me. I did not know a recent drug test had shown that.
Well, I can't imagine that the OSAR isn't going to recommend inpatient, but you know, I guess we
Well,
can.
especially at 25, at a level of 25,000. I don't. Yeah.
So
Thumbs up.
yeah. Okay, just do your best to talk with her. All right, Miss Lucero.
I just have a question for Ms. Brooks. Ms. Brooks, what now that Christopher's back in town, what's his visitation schedule?
So I staffed with my supervisor yesterday. With his levels of marijuana, they're fairly high, showing he's not just using on a medical basis like he had kind of hinted to me at the beginning is what it was for. Before we were doing the 2 hours because he was having to drive all this way for his in-person visits. He has not attended very many virtual sessions, and he's told me it's because of connection, but I had been on a few of them and there was no connection issues. But for now, I think we're sticking with the 2 hours unless anyone has any objections to that. My main concern is just how high his marijuana levels are in his drug screens.
Okay, and it's my understanding he was having 2 hour in-person visits twice a month. Is that right?
Yes. So on the weeks he wasn't here for in-persons, he was having virtual. So it was an every other week type deal.
Okay, and let me ask you, because Isabella's 9 months old, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how do virtual visits work? I mean, I know it's hard enough to keep a 2 or 3 year old entertained on a night, on a virtual visit. How does that work with like a 9 month old?
So we've kept him at 30 minutes just because she is so young. Since she's gotten older, they've gotten better because she's able to coo more and, play in front of him. And he engages with her really well when they do have his virtuals.
Okay.
But that's pretty much the gist of it. But that was how we could accommodate to him because he said he didn't have the money to come every week. And so we threw those virtuals in there. So he was getting to see her every week.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. All right, then. So it's been staffed, and as long as no one objects to it, you're looking at staying at 2 hours every other week, or is it 2 hours per week?
I think we'll do it every week. And like I said, the main concern I have is just the drug usage. But from what I've talked with my supervisor, the 2 hours I think is still accommodating enough to him, so he's getting to see her.
Okay, and I'll talk with him about the drug screens. Okay, that's all I have. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Quick question, Ms. Brooks, is he reported that he's working?
So he was working in Colorado with him moving back down here. He's had 2 interviews, I believe, last I talked to him. He had one yesterday and then one last week. He's waiting for a call back to see if he got hired for those jobs, but he was working up until he moved down here.
All right, so would you say that he's cooperating with you and staying in contact with you?
Yes and no. There's times he will not answer me. And that's been the hardest part about getting his services set up. And even when we were trying to do him virtually, it was trying to figure out him getting involved and wanting to answer. He kept saying, I just hadn't had time. I just haven't had time. And that's kind of been the excuse every month. And so now that he's down here, it's been a little bit easier because as soon as he moved up there, that's what made it harder. And at first I called Colorado CPS. I called all the places up there to see where he could go. And every month I just don't have time. So yes, he does. I just feel like I always get the excuse of I don't have time or something is interfering. But I think it might be better now that he's down here. He can be held a little more accountable since he's not so far away.
Okay. So as it stands right now, we haven't been able to verify the parenting. He has drug screened for us. He is visiting.
Mm-hmm.
So we would say that he's at least in partial compliance with his service plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll see how quickly he gets going on counseling and some other things. Good.
And Ms. Brooks, he still has he's still got to do his bill. Is that right?
Yes. And I've sent the referral off. I believe he's probably just waiting for the call to set up his intake and stuff to be able to get those started. And I did just let him know he needs to call Jennings to set those appointments up because they got back to me on dates they could have available. I just can't book it for him.
Okay. And he's needing also psychosocial therapy and OSAR.
Yes. And they'll do his psychosocial. They'll do that before they start therapy. And then his OSAR referral I have sent out. So again, just waiting on the contact from Ms. Fuentes who does the OSARs now.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Small.
Ms. Brooks, since we were talking about Dad, when he was in Colorado, he was working the whole time and his 2 confirmed days off were actual work weekdays, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he indicate why during those weekdays that he had off that he couldn't start any of these services?
No, he just told me he didn't have time.
Hopefully Isabella's surgery and all the medical appointments that she's got coming up will help with her eating issue. But meanwhile, she's got that feeding therapy going on. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And for a while, we were trying to incorporate some of those in mom's visits so mom could learn the proper way to feed her.
Yes, ma'am.
And with all of these procedures, the way she is fed may change over the next few months.
Yes, it very well could be.
So would it make sense to incorporate Dad into those sessions so that he can be on board with knowing exactly how he needs to feed her?
Yes, ma'am. We actually had the therapist go to a session in January when he came for an in-person, and they're actually going today to his visit. So we've already started the process on that too.
Wonderful. Your Honor, I've got no more questions, and Isabella is in a wonderful, I think, kind of fictive kin placement, all on top of her medical, and I've got no concerns with that placement.
All right, thank you. Okay, then today, I'm going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator, and I'll continue the child's current placement. I'm going to find that there is a continuing danger to return the child home to either parent at this point in time, and that the department's using reasonable efforts to reunify the family. I'll find that father is in partial compliance and that mother is currently not in compliance till we get started on some rehabilitative measures. I will sign the order and see everybody back on June 4th of 2024. That's on a 9 o'clock docket, and that is set as our final. Okay, thank y'all very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Judge. Hey, Judge, before TD gets away, can I speak to him in the room real quick?
Sure.
And Judge, if TD needs an updated number, I don't know which ones he has for Misty. If he wants to send me an email, or I can send him one with Misty's number that I have now. I don't know.
Yeah, if you please just text me the number that you have. Like I said, I have a couple here, but I haven't been able to reach her lately. So
Yes, I know she switched them a couple times. I think I have new number for her quite a few times on my phone, so I can figure out which one it is.
you have my cell.
I do not, sir.
I'll give it to you. I have no problem. 806.
Okay, I'll get that sent over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Judge, if you want to put me in breakout room with Daniel, that's fine.
That's y'all ready to go. Room 1.
Thank you, Judge.
We're here set for our adversary hearing on a reset from March 19th. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Hey, Michelson, on behalf of Brittany Hadaway, she's present and we're ready.
Stacy Zabala on behalf of Dante.
George Harwood on behalf of Sean Hadaway, maternal grandfather of the child and proposed intervener in this suit. We're ready.
Okay, and Mr. Roberts is not present, although he was personally served on March 12th of 2024.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so I think the first thing we would need to take up would be Mr. Harwood's intervention. I'm not seeing that anybody has filed a motion to strike that or is objecting to that. Where do we stand?
Judge, as far as the department, we don't have any objection to Mr. Harwood. You know, his client is placement of the child right now. He's been deemed appropriate through us. We don't have an objection to Mr. Harwood coming in.
My position would be the same. The child is placed with him. That's where I would like placement to continue. And don't have a specific objection to the intervention.
I've spoken with Brittany and she's agreeable to that arrangement.
All right, and since Mr. Roberts is not present, then I guess we move forward without him. Mr. Harwood, I've reviewed your intervention, and although it wasn't filed as a leave for intervention, which is normally what we do in the CPS cases, no one is objecting to it. So I'm going to find that your clients have standing and grant them leave to intervene in the case. So you all will, or Mr. Hadaway will officially be a party to the case at this point in time.
Yes, Your Honor. Just so everybody understands, he's here with his sister Andrea, and they're kind of teaming up to take care of Dante in Mr. Hadaway's home because Mr. Hadaway works full time, and it's about the only arrangement we could have where the child could stay in his home. But she's not a party necessarily because she's a great aunt, and Mr. Hadaway is, of course, the maternal grandfather, and I think he has standing under the 102-004 as a grandparent anyway. So that we're ready to proceed.
Okay. All right, then, Mr. Trout, and then with respect to our adversary hearing, who's your first witness?
We called Kelsey White, Your Honor, and I know we have to take some testimony as far as dad. Mr. Michelson did let me know that mom is in agreement at this time, but we still need to take some testimony as to dad.
So she's agreeable to naming the department as temporary managing conservator and for placement to be with the grandfather?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, then. I'm looking for it. Ms. White, I couldn't find you.
And how are you familiar with that case?
I was the investigator on the case.
Okay. How did the department become involved in the case with this child?
We received a report regarding mom's drug use and the positive drug screens for her and baby at birth.
Okay. And were you able to see mom?
I made contact with her at the hospital.
And what is mom's name?
Brittany Hadaway.
Okay. And were you able to discuss the allegations with mom
I was.
and let her know why the CPS was involved?
Yes.
And did mom admit or deny drug use to you?
She did admit drug use.
Okay. Did mom admit that she had used drugs throughout the case or throughout the pregnancy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did the child have any issues from that drug use?
As far as the drug use, no. He did have to go to NICU for antibiotics.
Okay. Was he full-term baby?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything else? Did the child have to receive any treatment?
Yes, he had to receive 14 days of antibiotics.
Okay. And you said that was in the NICU?
Yes.
And that was due to an infection or illness that he had contracted?
Yes.
Okay. During your conversations with mom, did she tell you who dad possibly was?
Within time, yes, she did tell me who dad was.
Okay. And she gave you what was the name she gave you?
Dimitri Roberts.
Okay. Was mom sure that he was, or is there somebody else that possibly could
Yes.
be, or was it him? Just him?
In the beginning, she said there were a few possibilities. And then once we talked more about, the department was going to have to staff with legal, she said it was Dimitri. He just didn't want involvement.
Okay, but she never gave you any other name?
No.
Okay. Were you able to make contact with Demetri Roberts?
No. Yeah, as far as interviewing and talking to him about the case, no.
Okay. Did you speak with him on March 14th?
Oh, yes, with him and Brittany, yes, I'm sorry.
Did he say that did he think he was the father?
Yes, from my understanding, that acknowledgement just didn't want to participate in the case.
Okay. Does he want paternity testing done, or is he acknowledge? It still states he's in agreement to do what he needs to be done to establish paternity. Is he wanting paternity testing?
From my understanding, it was more of whatever would get him, quote, released from the case quicker. So if they needed to verify paternity and that would have him released, then fine. But if he could do it without, then fine. It was just whatever he could do quickly,
Okay.
is what I gathered.
Did he state he was not willing to work services for the department?
Correct.
So he wants nothing to do with the case. He just wants a finding and be out as quick as he can.
Right.
That's your understanding of his conversation? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is the department today asking, based upon mom's agreement and dad not willing to work with the department, and wanting essentially out of the case, are you asking today for temporary managing conservatorship to the department?
Yes.
And do you believe that's in the best interest of the child at this time?
Yes.
And placement is with grandfather who has intervened into the case, correct?
Yes.
And he has been found to be appropriate, and we have no issues with that placement.
Yes, they've been cooperative and appropriate this entire case.
Okay. And we would ask that placement stay there.
Yes.
How is the child doing now?
From my understanding, he's doing really well. I know they followed up with medical and things like that. I think that he's thrived there.
Okay. Would you ask the court, based upon your conversation with Mr. Roberts, that we maybe get genetic testing done for Mr. Robert, Dimitri Roberts?
Yes. Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Michelson.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Harwood.
Ms. White, have you been out to Mr. Hadaway's home and seen the child and observed the setting for the child there?
I'm sorry, you cut out in the beginning.
Okay, have you had an opportunity to go out to Mr. Hadaway's home and see the child at that home?
Yes, whenever they first got home.
But that's been about 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Yes, I have not since the case got since since we were moved, yes.
Has Mr. Hadaway discussed with you his desire to have his sister assist with him in caring for the child while he works?
Yes, that's been discussed with me throughout. That was the understanding of him being placed with him, was that they would have to work a schedule out to work together.
Has there been some problem because he would like for the child to be allowed to go to his sister's home so she can care for the child in her home rather than coming to his home?
Right. Right.
Is that a problem?
There is an issue as far as our policies and procedures go. I'm just the investigator. And that was staffed up with my supervisor and my program administrator, actually. Now, as far as the involvement now, like with St. Francis and everything, that can be discussed with them, because I mean, they have been appropriate and cared for him this long. As far as her household, that would have to be approved by someone else. I was just following the guidelines I'd been given.
Okay, I'm sorry. So we'd have to work with St. Francis or their representative in regard to any issue that might exist about that?
Yes. So once the case, it's been moved to them, that caseworker would be able to discuss with her supervisor as far as that goes, because that was just in that moment. I did not have approval to approve that at the time.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Let me just ask, Mr. Harwood, is the plan that like the child would go with her during the daytime or whenever your client is working, and then come back to his home?
Yes, ma'am. That's what we'd like to do. It makes it a little cumbersome for his sister to have to come to his house and stay at his house to care for the child during the day. But if we could have the arrangement where the child could be taken to his sister's home during the day and then returned at night for him to care for the child, that would be ideal for us.
Okay, let me just ask Ms. Hunter, you have any input on that or insight, or how quickly we could get something like that done?
So that was looked at during investigations, because the aunt's home was actually the primary residence that they were looking at placing the child with, to my understanding. It was not approved because of a prior CPS case that her husband was involved in. And so unfortunately, that's, to my understanding, that was the reason why it was not able to be approved.
Well, how long ago was that, and what are we talking about?
It was a prior abuse case that was unable to determine.
It was in 2016, I believe, and I can pull that up for you, Judge. This has been discussed with the grandfather and the aunt regarding she wasn't under the impression that's how it had been closed out. So it was a shock and an inconvenience at the time, because they already had a plan in place for the baby.
Okay, and the disposition was unable to determine?
Yes.
And what age child did it involve?
I believe he was 8. I can actually pull it up. So the kiddo at the time of the case was, oh gosh, it does the corrected time in our impact. I'm sorry, so I got to do math. So he would have been 5 at the time of the case.
Was this a child that was living in the home or visiting in the home, or?
In the home, from my understanding, it was with his ex, and he doesn't have contact with that kiddo. Like, they do have contact, or what he's been helping financially now as the case has been closed. That case was from 2013. I'm sorry, not 16. But they don't even live here anymore, is from what I gathered in talking to the aunt.
Do you have any criminal history?
No, and that was the thing. As far as running everything, they were great. I mean, he is currently on probation, but none of that was a no for us. It was this sex abuse UTD, unable to determine, that my upper management couldn't approve.
Ms. Zavala, have you seen any of this?
I am not aware of the details. I was just told that uncle was ineligible to be placement because of some previous CPS history, but I really have seen none of the details on it whatsoever. What I just heard is all new to me.
Okay, I'd like for Ms. Zavala to be given the details of all that. What were the circumstances, and the opportunity to make any inquiry about that before we make a decision on it. So, we could take it up again at the status hearing if we don't have something resolved about it before then.
Judge, if I might say something here, I think we can work it out once we are able to have a conversation with Ms. Zavala and with the St. Francis representative. As Ms. White has indicated, this dates to nearly 11 years ago. The individual has been the husband of Andrea for some years now, and the child would not be left unsupervised with her husband, I don't believe. It's the situation that they just didn't want him around at all that was the problem, and made it necessary for her to go to her brother's house to help care for Dante. And that's what we're trying to get around. But I believe if we have some time, we can work this out with Ms. Zavala and with the representative from St. Francis.
Well, I want to give everybody time to look into it and get everybody's story. Let me just put it that way.
All right.
So, okay. All right, then. I'm trying to remember where I interrupted. Ms. Zavala, have you had an opportunity to question yet?
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Trout, anything further of Ms. White?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anybody else have any questions for Ms. White? Okay, then, Ms. White, you're free to go at this time.
Thank you, Cassie.
All right, Mr. Trout, you can call your next witness.
I have no further witnesses, Your Honor.
All right. So we got Mr. Roberts personally served.
Yes, ma'am.
We've obviously been in contact with him. We've made it pretty clear what level of involvement he wants to have with us. So, do we know? I mean, we don't know really much about anything else about his living situation or anything like that because he's not cooperated.
Yeah, I don't believe so, Your Honor.
All right, then. Do you rest?
Formal rest, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Harwood, anything else to offer today?
No, ma'am. We've not served Mr. Roberts because we haven't been able to locate him either. And now that Ms. Hadaway is kind of situated in her rehab, we'll probably be able to get her served, or maybe she'll sign a waiver citation as far as we're concerned, but we'll be moving in that direction.
All right. Okay, and Ms. Zavala.
Your Honor, it is my recommendation that Dante remain in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department. I have no objection, and as to the placement situation as it now stands, grandfather has been very cooperative with our office. We've gotten lots of information, and depending on what comes up with the review, I may not have an objection to Aunt's home. I know they're working well as a team. I just don't have enough information at this point to make a recommendation on that.
All right, so Mr. Harwood, you understand at least at this juncture, she'll need to still come to his home. We'll try to get everybody looking into this as quick as we can.
Yes, ma'am. We'll be very cooperative to provide any information that anybody wants, and we'll continue to go along as we have been the last couple of weeks.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, then at this time,
Judge,
yeah.
I apologize for interrupting you. I think mom is I believe in a rehab right now, but can we go ahead and get UAs and hair follicles ordered, at least for dad? I'm assuming mom's getting tested in the facility, but if not, if we could get testing done on both.
Or order it. Don't know that you're getting there, but we can try.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, then at this time, as stated earlier, I'm going to grant the intervention to Mr. Hadaway. I'll find that the evidence is sufficient to name the Department of Family and Protective Services as the temporary managing conservator of the child. I will find that there's a continuing danger to return the child home to either parent. Mom has admitted drug use, is in rehabilitation, which is a very good thing. Father has not cooperated or given us much idea about his situation. So it's not safe to return the child either place. I'll expect the department, of course, to use reasonable efforts to reunify the family. I'll continue the placement with the maternal grandfather, their intervener, and I'll order genetic testing on Mr. Roberts, order him to also do a UA and a hair when he's contacted. And we'll order the same on Ms. Hadaway. I assume that where she's at is probably doing that anyway, but if they're not doing hair testing, we wanting to make arrangements to get her somewhere to have that done. Mr. Trout, is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Anna. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Okay, then I'll see everybody back for our status hearing, which is scheduled for April 30th. And that'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. And hopefully this issue will be resolved about going to Ant's house. But if there's something everybody needs to run past me before that, just let me know. It's probably something we can address by email if we need to.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. We are here today scheduled for our status hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record.
And Judge, I'll be looking for Christina Hunter.
Okay. I'll get her in.
And I think Mr. Harwood said maybe Lorraine Lucero was going to stand in for him.
Okay. Because I didn't have him. So thank you. She is in the waiting room.
And Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Christina Hunter is my permanency specialist. We are present ready.
Jay Michelson on behalf of Brittany, the mother. I don't see that she's present. I've had one conversation with her this month. I understand Christine Hunter just recently attempted to contact her and was unable to do so. I'm present. My client's not, but I'm ready.
Lorraine Lucero, I'm sitting in for George Harwood, Your Honor, regarding the grandfather, Mr. Hadaway. I was going to ask the court if, I don't know what the schedule is right now, but if I could have a quick breakout room with the attorneys if possible.
Yeah. It's a status hearing, but let me stick you in there real quick. But if y'all will
it'll be quick,
because we're just so far behind today. All right, Ms. Zavala, you can go back to 1. Okay, you guys just beat me to the buzzer. Literally. Okay, we ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's see. I think did we get everybody's announcements? Yeah. Okay, what do we have new since the court report was filed?
Good morning. So since the court report was filed, I have had a couple conversations with Mom. She did enter rehab at the last hearing. She did not stay very long, unfortunately. When she left, she came back to Amarillo. She is still in the same predicament she was in at removal, unfortunately. I've discussed with her about her services. I've shown her family plan and the visitation plan. She approached me and said that she was looking at wanting to relinquish. And so I have reached out to Mr. Michelson and Mr. Trout to let them know. And so at this point, I'm still trying to get in contact with her to follow through on the relinquishment. As far as Mr. Roberts, I was able to lay eyes on him as well, because Ms. Hadaway and Mr. Roberts are still together at the same location. He was still not willing to engage with me. He did tell me good morning, though. But outside of that, he wasn't willing to talk with me or engage with me in any kind of capacity.
Okay. And of course, he's not submitted a request for an attorney. And are they both home? Are they still homeless?
They're living over at the Sundown Motel, but essentially, yes.
Ms. Hunter, if you're able to get in touch with mom again and dad is around. Can we try to relay through mom to see if dad, I know has said before he didn't wish to cooperate or to have deal with CPS. But if we can get a message to him as far as relinquishment on him also, if he wants us to quit bothering him or to get out of his life, if we can try to relay that to him. I'm sure you probably have, but if we can get that, maybe we can get something done on this case a little quicker.
Yes, that's what I had tried before. Whenever I met with Brittany, I asked if he would be willing to even just step out to talk to me about what he needed to do in order to, again, try to move forward with getting out of this case if that's what he wanted. And he wasn't willing to speak with me at all. Brittany stated that she would try to give me his phone number because she said that maybe he would be able to be willing to speak with me over the phone. But she never followed through with that. And I have a feeling it's probably because he just didn't want me to have his contact information.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, so we've made no headway on any service plans.
Mom did sign her service plan, and her visitation plan. Those got e-filed late yesterday. As far as, Dimitri, though, he's not signed it, not seen it, anything of that capacity, as he won't engage with me.
And Judge, those are filed, dad's was filed on 4/23. Mom signed hers on 4/24 and it was filed on 4/29.
Okay.
But Dante's doing really well. He's thriving. Grandpa and aunt are taking wonderful care of him. He had a doctor's appointment yesterday. Andrew told me about it this morning whenever I spoke with her, that all his levels that they were concerned about, they're all trending down. So he got his 2-month shots yesterday as well. He's gaining weight. He's about 9 pounds. I believe 9 pounds 6 ounces is what she told me. And so he's gaining some weight. He's got some issues with some eczema, so they're still trying to battle that side of it. But outside of that, he's doing wonderful with them.
Okay, great. All right, then, Mr. Michelson, anything to report today?
No, I had one conversation with Brittany. She expressed to me a desire to relinquish. I contacted the county attorney's office, and they provided me a relinquishment document, but I have not had contact with Brittany since. Miss Hunter has expressed a willingness to assist me since I'm a Canadian and she's in Amarillo, so that we're just trying to coordinate that now. So.
Okay. All right, and Ms. Lucero?
Your Honor, George just wanted me to convey to the court, and in the breakout room we discussed, I guess it's been brought before the court. The child is placed with Mr. Hadaway, the grandfather, his sister, Andrea helps, but whenever she helps him, she has to come over to the house. She's hoping that, or they're hoping that she would be able to take the child to her house and watch him at times, but apparently her husband has, I guess, an unable to determine case, a CPS case back a few years ago. So
Right.
I know it's a status hearing. I explained to them that it probably couldn't be addressed again today. So we discussed in the breakout room that George can maybe just set up a quick hearing and y'all could just have, it's my understanding, since there's an unable to determination in the past, then the department cannot agree, to that, but you could. So anyway, so that's all I have.
Yeah, and we covered a lot of that at our last hearing, and I'm just looking back to see where we, yeah.
And Your Honor, I would join in that request for a hearing on that. I'm not opposed at this point to Dante being able to be cared for in Aunt's home, but I know that St. Francis is in a position where they can't agree to it. I don't know that we've got enough time to go through the issue today, so I would ask for a hearing as soon as possible.
Well, let me just put it this way. If Ms. Zavala doesn't have a problem with it, is this just a policy thing that St. Francis can't agree to it? Y'all really want a full-blown hearing?
Well, and Judge, I haven't spoke with Ms. Hunter and Ms. Watson about this. When this first came up, I was dealing with the department and their policies on it. And what the issue was, the nature of the case that it wasn't unable to determine was the main issue that we had. I can speak to Ms. Hunter and Ms. Watson real quick, if you give me just a second and see where their stance is. I just haven't had that conversation with them yet.
And let me just ask, I mean, would the child ever be left in his care or left alone with him?
Ms. Hadaway?
No, Your Honor.
No, ma'am.
Okay, makes a big difference to me. So I'll let y'all talk if you can do it real fast,
Yes, ma'am.
because we might be able to save some time here, long term.
Yeah.
So Ms. Trout, you can go back to 1, and Ms. Zavala can go back to 1, and I'll put Ms. Hunter there. And who else do you want? Ms. Watson?
Ms. Watson, yes.
Okay. All right. What's St. Francis's position?
Well, Judge, we still have to have the same position at this time, that we can't agree to it just due to the nature of what was alleged. If the court, we would say if the court decides to allow it, we would go through a home study to get safety plans set up and to make sure everything's documented on that, if that is the route the court decides to go there. I think Ms. Zavala probably has some guidelines that she would be willing to agree to as far as what she would ask also.
So if I put it this way, that Ms. Hadaway can care for the child in her home as long as she is the only one that's providing that care, and the child is not left unsupervised with anyone else, does that cover our bases?
I'm okay with that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And Judge, I'd reiterate that if that is going to be the ruling, we would, St. Francis would go through with a home study with Ms. Andrea and go through all those processes with her.
Okay, so today I'm going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator and continue the child's current placement. Find a continuing danger to return the child home today, that the department's using reasonable efforts to reunify the family. I'm going to allow Andrea Hadaway to care for the child in her home as long as she is the only one providing that care and the child is not unsupervised with anyone else. No ifs, ands, or buts. Order of the service plans as an order of the court. We'll order the home study on Ms. Hadaway in that household. And our next hearing date will be August 29th of 2024 on a 9:00 docket.
Daniel, if possible, can you send me over the relinquishment papers for Dimitri? So just in case I do happen to stumble upon him and Brittany together, maybe I can get them both done.
Yeah, I'll get some sent over to you.
Obviously, folks, we need to get to our initial permanency hearing before I set a final in the case. So,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, if you get those relinquishments, obviously we can change that. So, okay. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for
Thank
taking
you.
good
Thank you.
care of Dante.
Thank
It's
you.
our pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. For our adversary hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement parties. We're live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm Tate Eldridge. I represent the mother, Mandy Parks. We're both present, ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Zoe.
All right, and Mr. Privet, the alleged father is not present, nor is he in my waiting room.
And he has not been served, Your Honor. I believe the address we have is jail.
Yeah, I think
he's
he was in
Bradshaw
state-
Jail.
I'm sorry, he's in state.
Bradshaw State Jail is the address we have. We've sent out for service, and I'm checking again just to make sure, but I don't believe it has come back served.
Okay.
But he is incarcerated, so don't know how the court wants to handle that today.
Well, he was obviously not placement of the child at the time of removal, and he obviously cannot take placement of the child. So we'll go ahead and proceed with our adversary hearing today. So, all right, Mr. Tate Mr. Eldridge has announced that his client has agreed to name the department as temporary managing conservator, work services. I guess there's an issue about she's wanting placement with the maternal grandmother. And apparently that's where she lives right now. So we'll have to talk about that. But Mr. Trout, if you want to go ahead and put on whatever witnesses you need to with respect to Mr. Privet.
Yes, ma'am. We call Misty front of house. And how are you familiar with that case?
I am their FBSS caseworker.
Okay. And how did we become involved in this case?
Mandy tested positive, the mom, for both amphetamine and methamphetamine when she was giving birth. And baby Zoe also tested positive in meconium and umbilical cord for meth and amphetamine.
Okay. And when you became involved, what was your first steps? Were you able to meet with the parents?
Yes, I actually met mom at home during my first visit. Baby Zoe stayed in the NIC unit through most of, up until 2 weeks ago. And I met with Mandy every week.
During, you heard a second ago that mom's in agreement to work services. And for the department to have temporary managing conservatorship, is that correct?
I did hear that, yes.
Okay. And you need to give us verbal answers so the court reporter can get it. Thank you.
I apologize.
Did mom tell you who dad was of Zoe?
Yes, she said that Donald Privet would be the father. She had mentioned 2 at the beginning, but towards the end, she said it was Donald, that Zoe even resembled him.
Okay. As far as any other name, did she completely rule somebody else out? Or is that somebody that we also need to look at?
She mentioned Anthony Adversary. I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but she never talked about him again after the beginning. It was always Donald.
Okay. Have you ever been able to get in contact with Donald Privet?
No, I have not.
Did you send letters? Have you sent any letters to the jail?
I have not sent letters. When I called up to the jail on the 27th, the lady asked me to call back this week.
Okay.
I don't know why. She just said that she couldn't answer how to get the mail to him. So I've not called back this week yet.
Okay. So just to verify on the investigative report, it states that a letter will be sent to the father in jail. Was that letter not mailed out? Is that what you're saying?
That letter has not been mailed out because we do not know how to get it to him.
Okay.
Like, we have the address to the jail, but we're not sure. My supervisor told me to wait to find out if we mail it directly to him or if there is a person, a contact, if we need a certain number on there, like an inmate number. So I had waited to contact the jail and I have not been able to do so.
Okay. Have you done any online jail searches for Texas state jails to see if you can find any of that information?
It doesn't say how to, could not find how to mail a letter. I do know that he's at Bradshaw in Henderson, Texas, and that is about all I know.
Okay. Do you know at this time, has mom mentioned, has she reached out to him? Has any family reached out to him? Have you been able to find any family for dad?
I have not found family yet. We did request an accurate report, but I have not received that back. And mom has never indicated that she wanted dad involved, so there was never talk about him.
Okay. And I know you're fairly new to this, but you understand once we take custody of a child, we need to contact all biological family possible.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. So you have run accurate searches for family.
Yes.
You know dad's in jail. We just haven't been able to get a letter to him.
Correct.
And you haven't been able to get through phone calls to him.
Correct.
Okay. When is your next, are you planning on calling, or is after this hearing, or St. Francis going to work on that, or have y'all discussed that?
I haven't discussed it with Jalissa, but I did plan on calling and having the letter mailed out tomorrow. It's printed and ready to go. I just need to know how to get it to him.
Okay. All right. How is Zoe doing?
Zoe's doing really well. She did her 3-day exam. Foster mom said she's adapting. She's doing really well. No issues other than the spot on her face. They are going to send her to a specialist in Lubbock because it's still growing.
Okay. And just for our information, you said spot on her face. What type of spot are we talking about?
So she had a hemangioma, which is basically just a blood vessel on the surface. They said it was the size of a pen spot, like, an ink pen when she was born. And by the time she left the hospital, it was the size of a quarter. And so they started putting some eye drop gel on it to dry it out. And it did shrink a little, but I guess it has started growing again.
Okay. You said they're gonna send her to have it looked at?
Yes.
And is that concern of it, trying to figure out how to get it to shrink down, or is there concerns of something else with it?
Well, it's to shrink it down because if it's so close to her eye, I think they're worried that it will cause issues with her eye.
Okay, and you kind of cut out on my side. I don't know if you did. Could you say that again?
Yes, they're worried that if it continues to grow, it could issues with her left eye.
Okay. And I know mom's agreed, but we have kind of started this out as a safety plan. Is that correct?
Yes.
And safety plan was broken down to you due to usage.
Yes.
Okay. At one point, mom had gone to Centocor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is she still at Centocor, or is she left Centocor?
No, she texted me and told me she left.
Okay. So is mom, to your knowledge, is she planning on getting back into another treatment or trying somewhere different? What's her plan?
In her text, it stated that she was going to contact the pavilion.
Okay.
I have not talked to her again to see if she had. I know she was going to contact Jalissa, so I'm not sure if she's contacted her or not.
Okay. All right. And are you asking today that the department be awarded temporary managing conservatorship based upon mom's agreement and dad being incarcerated and not able to take care of the child at this time?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that's in the best interest of the child?
Yes, I do.
I'll pass the witness, Sharon.
All right, Mr. Eldridge.
So my client, Mandy, had difficulty with some of the logistics at the treatment facility. I guess you haven't talked to her yet, but is there another facility that she might be able to get into locally? I know she's wanting to go through the pavilion to work on some mental health issues and try to rehab at the same time. Is that acceptable to the department, or do you guys have something different in mind that might work?
No, that was one of our recommendations. I know Centocor had wanted, Mandy stated Centocor wanted to send her to Oceans, and she did not want to go there. We also mentioned a place in Dallas because they had a good facility, but her mom did not want her to go out of town. So we are perfectly fine with her going to the pavilion. I definitely think whatever help she'll accept will be good.
Okay. So that's all I have, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness.
All right, and Ms. Zavala.
Questions, Your Honor?
Okay. Mr. Trout, you have anything further for this witness?
Nothing further from this witness, Your Honor.
All right, anybody else have any questions for Ms. Fronterhouse?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then any objection to her being excused?
No objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Fronterhouse, you're free to go today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any further witnesses?
I'll call Ms. Bird real quick, Your Honor, just for a couple of follow-up questions. Ms. Bird, you heard the testimony just say goes to dad.
Yes.
Have you at this time, I know the case hadn't officially been transferred to you, but have you made any attempts to try to get in touch with him or any kind of contact?
No, not at this time. I was able to get an address to help Misty send a letter to dad. So I provided that to her.
Okay. And you heard mom's attorney's questions as far as places that mom could go. You heard Ms. Fronterhouse say that the pavilion would be suitable. Are St. Francis okay with that also?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And they do offer the mental health services along with some sort of rehab services.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Has mom contacted you any about help on that, or are you able to provide any help trying to get her squared away with that?
I can contact mom after the hearing today to see if I can help, but I have not had contact with mom yet.
Okay. I'll pass witness, Your Honor.
I don't have any questions, Judge.
No question, John.
All right, any further witnesses?
Actually, Judge, for Ms. Bird, I do have a couple more questions. Ms. Bird, where is placement right now?
It's at a foster home in Amarillo.
Okay. Earlier, Mr. Eldridge mentioned that mom may be asking for placement with grandmother. Currently, mom lives in that home. Have we looked into grandmother as far as placement or done any sort of home study or assessment on her?
No, not at this time. We were told that mom lived with maternal grandmother, so we have not started any background checks or anything to place Zoe with maternal grandmother. So since that is discussed today, we can start background checks and just to see if Mandy look for another placement or home for Mandy, and then possibly look into maternal grandmother.
Okay, but at this time, as long as mother's in the house, we can't place right there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. But if mom finds another place to go or gets in a pavilion or some sort of treatment, we could start looking in that direction.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. I'll pass witness, Sharon.
Okay,
No.
anybody have any questions for Ms. Bird?
No, Your Honor.
No questions.
So in response to that, Ms. Parks, depending on what you decide to do about going into treatment as far as inpatient, we could start to look at that, but we'd want to have a plan, in place for you. If you go to inpatient, okay, what are you going to do when you complete inpatient? And, because what we don't want to do is get a home study done, maybe get the baby settled in your mom's home, and then you have nowhere to go, because that doesn't help either, for you to be homeless, So I think that you all need to talk maybe a little more about what that's going to look like before you make a decision that you want to move forward with a home study on grandmother. Your success in this case, can be greatly affected by your housing situation. So, I think it's just time you all talk as a family and decide what's the best thing to do here. So, Mr. Eldridge, I'm not going to make any decision on that issue today. I mean, if they kind of figure out what the next plan would be for your client, then, certainly you can communicate that to Ms. Bird and then they could initiate a home study.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor.
But, as long as she's in the home, that home study is not going to pass. And I think it's just a question of deciding, is she going to go to inpatient? What's she going to do? Where does she go from there? So.
Okay.
Okay.
And I can have her testify if you want. There's some physical issues and she has to use a wheelchair, and Centercore was a large facility and they wouldn't allow the other guests to help her. And so, so she left voluntarily, and, but she's not in any way trying to avoid treatment. She knows she needs it, and she's the one that brought up the mental health to me. That's kind of the basis for the substance abuse is some of the things going on mental health wise, and so she wants to get back on her feet and do whatever it takes to get her baby back.
And I certainly appreciate what her additional difficulties, may be. So let me just, Ms. Parks, I just don't know how better to try to say this, but, Zoe is an infant. I know you'd prefer to have her with family, but she's in a foster home. She's getting good care. They're taking good care of her. This is not something she's going to have cognitive memory of down the road. I think it's, I think it's very important for you to have good, stable housing as you move forward in this case. And so I'm just asking you all to weigh that carefully. You can have stable housing there with your mother, and you all have probably kind of got that household set up to help accommodate your needs, and that may be hard to replicate, in the next 30 days or 60 days or something like that. So I just encourage you to think really hard about the big picture, not just about get the baby home, get the baby home, get the baby home. I understand why you feel that way, but there is a bigger picture. We want you to be successful, and stable housing is just, it's a key factor in the success of our cases. So let's just y'all weigh that carefully. Okay. Then anybody have anything further?
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
We have nothing further.
Ms. Vala, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. It is my recommendation that Zoe remain in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department. She is placed in a foster home. They are all over her medical needs and making sure she gets everything she needs to. She is in region, but about an hour away. But is receiving everything that she needs and is doing quite well. And I would recommend that placement continue. But I'm not objecting to any future home studies if we decide to do that.
And, Ms. Parks, if you get going on all this and really hit the ground running and you're really doing well, there's nothing that really precludes me from considering placing the child in the home with your mother and you being in the home. If I think you're doing well, and I think if you're sober and you're working hard towards getting all these things done. So I will just tell you, that's always a possibility. So, let's just take things one thing at a time, and the most important ones, which is drug use, that's at the top of the list. And so address that first, then we'll go on to the next thing. Okay. Okay, then at this time, I'll find the evidence is sufficient to name the department as temporary managing conservator, that there would be a danger to return the child home to either parent at this time, since we know drug use going on with mom, and we're working with her. I think we're headed in the right direction, but we aren't there yet. Father is incarcerated, so we obviously can't place there. I'll expect the department to use reasonable efforts to reunify the family. And we will have our status hearing on May 14th of 2024. That'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. Ms. Parks, they'll talk with you more about services and what they're going to need you to do throughout the course of this case. So between now and then, they're going to go over all that with you. And we will talk some more about that at the status hearing. But just understand, the sooner you can get started on things, the better. And like I said, the number one thing is the drugs. So
can I ask a question about the father thing?
Yes.
Is there any way that we could do like a DNA to make sure that he is the father instead of just saying that he is?
Yeah, he's just what we call an alleged father. Once he's notified, we're going to go ahead and appoint an attorney to represent him since he's incarcerated. His attorney will talk with him about that if he wants to. We can just order the genetic testing. If you have some doubt about it, are you telling me that there may be some doubt about it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Trout, we know where he is. Let's go ahead and get it ordered.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the name of anybody else that you think could be the father?
As Misty stated earlier, Anthony Adversary. He's also in jail in Randall County.
Okay.
Because I have an assault charge against him.
Okay. All right, then. We'll get going on all that, and I will see you back in May 14th, and wish you the best of luck, Ms. Parks. Get after this. It's clearly for your best interest and obviously in the best interest of the child for you to address these issues.
What about the visitation? I mean, I was kind of like not hearing everything because my thing was going slow. I heard you guys talk about visitation or something.
Yeah. Miss Bird will make all those arrangements.
Okay.
The child is about an hour away, so we're going to have to get that set up. But yes, you will get to have visitation.
Okay, good.
And Judge, can we go ahead and get hair follicle and UA on Ms. Parks? I know she's admitted to some use, but just to get our baseline where we are. I know she went to rehab and has gotten back out. I don't know if she's used since before we start putting contact, since it is methamphetamine use.
When was that hair test? I know I read in the affidavit there was a hair test that was done.
That was probably 2 weeks ago, I think.
I think that's about right, about 2 weeks ago, Judge. I'll have to find it exactly when that was.
Her urine was negative, but the hair was positive, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I believe that's right.
Okay.
That was on March 3rd that the UA was negative.
Let's get another UA on her, because that's going to tell us. I mean, we know the hair was positive, but let's just do another UA.
Okay. And Judge, if Mr. Eldridge doesn't have an issue with it, I can ask Ms. Parks when her last use was, if that's okay.
She told me that after she left the airport that she fell off the wagon. So she has used last weekend, Mandy? Is that about right?
Like Friday.
And her and I talked about it, that you guys are probably going to want the test to establish a baseline. So moving forward, show that the numbers can go down, but that, it's not the end of the world that she's positive right now.
And I agree with that, Ms. Parks. So, you've been honest with us about all of this, and, I want you to continue to be honest with us. Here's the main issue is we've got an infant, and methamphetamine can absorb skin to skin contact. So what I would really like to do is we could set up like virtual where you can see the baby. I know it's not the same, but until you give us a negative UA, I'd really like to see some negative UAs. Then I'm hesitant to have you do any kind of in-person skin to skin contact holding the baby or anything, because it's dangerous for the baby. So, that's just further incentive. Let's get clean. Let's get into rehab, and, let's get some clean UAs going, and we'll get after the in-person contact. Okay. But that's just because it's a health issue for the child. It's not meant to punish you. It's just, it is what it is. And it's a health risk for the baby.
I understand.
Okay. Okay. Just get yourself into some treatment, and, this can all have a good outcome.
Can my mom see her or anything?
Ms. Bird, any problem with that if we can arrange?
Because my mom really wants to see her, and because I did this, I don't want my mom to not be able to see her granddaughter. So if my mom can see her, I would like for her to do it.
Can we maybe arrange something?
Yes, I believe we can arrange something.
Okay, until mom can start having some in-person contact. Okay. That may not be weekly, Ms. Parks, but maybe, it might be every couple of weeks. We could work that out.
Okay.
Okay. And the same thing again, we can get her on virtually, and at least you can see her, and see that she looks healthy and well cared for, and know, they're monitoring these medical issues, and be updated about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I appreciate everybody. I'll see you back May 14th.
Thank you,
Thank you. Thank you, Tate.
Daniel, I sent the signature page over.
I got it.
We are here today on a status hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming, and Ms. Taylor's making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Jalissa Bird is my permanency specialist. We're present ready.
Your Honor, I'm Tate Eldridge. I represent Mandy Parks, so we're both present ready.
Okay. Ms. Zavala, did you announce?
Sorry, Your Honor. No,
I saw Jay on the screen and thought I got confused. Stacy Zavala for Zoe.
All right, and just so it doesn't confuse anything or anybody, I'll put Mr. Michelson back in the waiting room. Okay. All right, then what's the update today?
Yes, family plans were created for the two alleged fathers. Mandy Parks signed her family plan and has started to call in services and begin her services. She's had weekly visits with Zoe virtually until we received more clean UAs. And so she did UA for us in April and in the beginning of this month on May 3rd. And so that was also a clean UA. So far, we're doing pretty well and on track. We did have an icebreaker with Zoe's placement and Mandy Parks and her mother, Sharon Parks. So that icebreaker went well and seems like a good relationship so far.
Okay, so are we going to be able to start in-person visits now?
I know when we were in court, it was mentioned a few, and so I wasn't sure if that needs to be 3 or 2. We do have 2 clean UAs.
Right. I'm good with it. If we want to go ahead and start some in-person, so we'll see if Ms. Zavala is good with it, but I think probably we could. Okay, and have we had any further contact with Mr. Privet or Mr. Essery?
I did send over their family plans, and one parent, I believe, was out Randall County. So I do plan to go out and visit with him. And then the other parent, I hope to get in touch with him just through mail.
Okay, what about genetic testing? We know where they both are.
Judge, we have an order on for Donald Privet. That's what I'm looking at to see where we stand. I know the order was signed, and I know Ms. Chavez reached out as far as getting some paperwork on it, so I seen where we stood on it.
Okay. Do we have it just on him?
Yes, ma'am, just on him right now. And that order looks like you signed it on the 25th of April. Ms. Bird, have you sent the completed 1702 back on that?
I don't believe I did. I can get that sent in today.
Yeah, if you'll get that sent over to Ms. Chavez, I can get that scheduled.
Okay.
And his correct last name is Privet, right? Privitt.
Yes, ma'am. I believe so.
All right, so I thought I'd ordered genetic testing on both of them. I know that the AG has a little bit of an issue with that, but
yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're early on in the case, so
yes, ma'am.
We'll do one and then we'll do the other if we need to. Okay.
And I think that's why Kim just stuck her head in. I think that's why we only did the one order right now, is because the AG will only do one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like pulling teeth to do 2 at once. Okay. Then Mr. Eldridge.
We don't have anything, Judge. Mandy's doing good. She's passed her UAs. We just like to move down the road a little bit and start the visits, and she's working her services. Other than that, we don't have anything to add, I don't believe, unless Mandy has something to say.
Oh,
you're muted, Mandy.
All right, I'm sorry.
Anything you want to add to that?
I have one thing to ask. My mom's visitations.
We can't hear.
My mom's visits.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Parks, what'd you say?
I said I was wondering about my mom's visitation with Zoe.
Okay, Ms. Bird, probably a question you could answer.
Yes, our family support worker, she was trying to get that scheduled and just trying to figure out how to get the visit between where Zoe's placed and then where grandmother is. And so I know she was working on that. And so I'm hoping to get that as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Ms. Grant's logged in now. So Ms. Grant, anything concerning Mr. Pruitt other than we've got outstanding genetic testing?
That's the only thing, Your Honor, and I'm attempting to schedule a call and with him. I haven't gotten to talk to him, so hopefully I'll get that done quickly.
Okay, and oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, he's in TDCJ, Judge.
Right. Okay, then Ms. Zavala.
Your Honor, Zoe's doing well. She actually had COVID for a while, but was, even through being sick, has gained weight and is doing well that way. I believe that should be pretty much resolved. She may still have a little cough. But as long as mom is testing negative, I don't have an objection to her visiting. That was my big concern before, was just making sure that Zoe doesn't get re-exposed. But if mom's cooperating and testing clean, then I have no objection to that visit.
Okay. All right, Ms. Parks, let me talk with you about your services. I'm going to order those as a part of the court order today. And so I do expect you to work those things, and failure to work those could mean Zoe not going home to you. In worst case scenario, it can mean termination of your parental right. So it's very important that you work your way through those things. You're off to a good start. So just keep up the good work, and this will all have a positive outcome. If you have any questions about what's expected of you, be sure you stay in contact with your attorney and with the permanency specialist, with Ms. Berg, so that you always know where you stand in the case, okay?
Okay.
All right, then for today, I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator, and I will continue the child's current placement. I'll find that there is a continuing danger to the child to be returned home today. Ask the department to continue to use reasonable efforts to reunify the family. Find mom she's complying with what we're asking her to do. Order the services as an order of the court. And I'll see everybody back on September 3rd of 2024 at a 9:00 docket. And that'll be our first initial permanency hearing. So we'll check in at the time, Ms. Parks, to see how everything is going.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Today's set on our adversary hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. We go ahead and announce.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Jay Michelson, on behalf of the father, we're present and ready.
T.D. Hammonds for Stall George. I'm ready to proceed, Judge.
Stacy Zabella for Stormy and Marlene.
Okay, and Ms. George and Mr. Brandt are both present by telephone. All right, so do y'all need to visit, or are we ready to go?
Yeah, let us visit. I don't know if Mr. Michelson wants to talk to his client again, or he wants to talk to me first, or TD same.
Why don't I speak with Mr. Brandt first, because that will probably go a long ways in terms of our conversation previously.
Mr. Hammonds, do you need to speak with your client, or are you all good?
I think we're fine, Judge.
TD, we're still in the same place we were when you and I talked this morning, earlier.
Yes, yes.
All right, y'all ready?
Judge, I think we'd have an announcement and a couple of things that Mr. Hammonds wants to present to the court and discuss.
Okay.
After speaking with parents, attorneys, we're in agreement for the department to have temporary managing conservatorship and for parents to work services. Would not ask for child support or medical support at this time. And Mr. Hammonds had a couple of things he wanted to ask, put in front of the court.
Judge, Miss George has been on disability her entire life. She is legally blind. I would like to ask the court to possibly order psychological analysis that might include some IQ testing or educational background testing, just so I have a good grasp of her ability to understand everything. my conversation with her, I mean, I don't have any doubt she understands everything, but I want her to, you know, be able to get the most out of any services that the court orders.
Okay, and Mr. Hammonds, does she have any opposition to that testing?
Miss George, are you able to unmute, press *6? If you understand what I'm asking the judge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you have any opposition to that? I mean, they would probably have you do some, I mean, just very genetic, very generic testing, just to kind of determine, like a GED type test, for instance. I mean, you did graduate high school, correct?
Yes, barely.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are some provisions that can be made if, you know, you need additional help, for instance, with parenting classes or anything like that, that the judge orders. You know, they can make some provisions for you. I mean, I realize since you're blind, they're going to have to make some special, you know, provisions anyway, but I just want everybody to understand exactly kind of what your situation is and if you're able to understand everything. I mean, do you have any objection to that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Let me just, I'm thinking out loud here. If we do a psychological evaluation, don't they do some basic testing like that as part of those?
I don't know that they necessarily do any IQ type testing, Judge. I think you might have to ask specifically if they'll just do some kind of basic GED or.
Would anybody at Dr. Jennings' office be qualified to administer some of that kind of testing?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know.
I mean, I know in the past, Judge, you know, Dr. Schneider, I've had him do some on some of my clients before. I've never had the Jennings, you know, do any IQ type testing. So,
well, I was just thinking that some of that was was a part of a basic psychological evaluation.
and you may be accurate on that, Judge. I mean, they may be able to just determine, you know, the way they answer questions, and I guess if they have some concerns of her ability to understand exactly what is required of her.
Let me ask Ms. Smith, who's here with Superior. Ms. Smith, is this something you've come across, you know, on behalf of a parent?
In my current role, I don't deal with parents, but I know when I worked at CPS before, I don't recall if they gave a number specifically for an IQ, but I know that I've had some that were able to get a psychological done and the recommendation for whether they needed or qualified for ADA under that umbrella. But that's been several years ago, and that was in Lubbock.
Okay. I think let's, we can certainly have St. Francis reach out to who would be our provider for that Stonebridge.
I think usually, yes, ma'am.
And find out if there is a component to that evaluation where they would do some of that quantitative testing.
Good.
So that if mom does have some other needs that we can assist in meeting, we'll at least know about it.
And Judge, I think Ms. Zuniga, in this Hippie Watson and Mickey Lane gonna have this case? Is that who we had on it?
Well, Ms. Watson may have even better ideas.
That's what I was thinking. If it is her, I'll shoot them an email, but I believe that's who it was.
Yeah, this one's Jennifer Campos.
Okay, Jennifer Campos, but I think she may be, I think she's in the group.
But we'll make sure and communicate that with them.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Hammonds, we'll see what we can get arranged.
All right, thank you, Judge.
Okay. Otherwise, this is you and your client's agreement?
Yes.
Okay, all right, Mr. Michelson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Along those lines, I would also request similar services be explored for Mr. Brandt. I know Mr. Brandt also has cognitive issues that I'm not clear as far as his level of understanding.
Okay, well, let's just try to assist both parents and get some baseline information and see what, if anything special they may need.
But Mr. Brandt has indicated that he's willing to work services because he believes that's in the best interest of, his relationship with his children.
Okay. All right. Okay, and Ms. Zavala, is this also your agreement?
That is also my agreement, and I do believe it's in the best interest of the girls.
Okay. Where are children placed?
They are a little bit south of Lubbock.
Okay. Relative placement or foster home?
It's my understanding it's a foster home. They do seem to be settling in nicely and doing well, but it's not a kinship placement.
So St. Francis will be arranging with transportation assistance, all that for visitation, I assume at some point.
Yes, ma'am. I'm assuming we'll discuss that with him.
Okay. All right then. Ms. Zavala, any other recommendation?
No, Your Honor. I do believe at this time placement is in their best interest. If a different possible kinship placement comes open, I'm not opposed to any home studies whatsoever on.
Your Honor, we have submitted a home study request.
Okay, who is that on?
It's an individual by the name of Amy.
Okay, everybody's breaking up. Ms. Zeniga, why don't you try again?
Sorry, Judge. I think that was Angelica trying to speak, and hers was breaking up real bad. Oh.
Okay, then Ms. Garcia, who is the home study on?
It's a family friend, Amy Ariza.
Okay. All right. Okay, and then at this time, I will find the evidence is sufficient to name the Department of Family and Protective Services as temporary managing conservator of the children, Marlene and Stormy Brandt. I'll find that there would be a continuing danger to the children to return them home at this point in time, that the department will use reasonable efforts to reunify the family. We'll take a look at the home study when that comes in. Our status hearing is May 14th of 2024. That's on a 9 o'clock docket. And we will obviously request St. Francis to look into this additional testing and services for parents, in addition to the rest of their service plans, which they will talk to them about between now and the next hearing. Okay. I will see everybody back then May 14th. I appreciate you all showing up today. Parents, y'all stay in touch with your lawyers and with your caseworker.